Welcome to Sleepless Ancient Odyssey. The day is done. It is time now to let the noise of your world fade into silence. Find your most comfortable position, and for the next few moments, simply relax. Tonight's Odyssey is about to begin. Tonight, we journey to the Caribbean Sea in the year 1715, where the black flag rises against azure skies and freedom comes at the price of blood. You will witness the transformation of desperate men into legends of the waves. You will walk the swaying decks of vessels built for speed and plunder, and you will discover what it truly meant to live outside the law, beyond the reach of kings and empires. This is not merely history. This is the story of those who chose danger over security, brotherhood over civilization, and the endless horizon over the chains of ordinary life. Whether you are here for a story to captivate your mind or a grand narrative to accompany you to sleep, your journey starts now. If you enjoy these odysseys, subscribe and join us every time we travel to the past. Now, let us begin. The ship rocks beneath your feet. The year is 1715, and you stand on the deck of a merchant vessel bound for London, your third year as a sailor in His Majesty's merchant fleet. The Caribbean sun beats down mercilessly, turning the wooden planks hot enough to burn through worn shoe leather. Salt crusts your lips. Your hands, calloused and scarred from rope work, move automatically through the tasks you have performed 1,000 times. Hauling, tying, climbing, obeying. Below deck, the cargo holds are filled with sugar and tobacco, destined for the warehouses of wealthy merchants who will never know your name. Your pay, when it comes, amounts to less than a shilling a day. The food is weevil-infested hardtack and salt pork gone, rancid in the tropical heat. The water in the barrels turned brackish weeks ago. You drink it anyway, because there is nothing else. The captain, a heavy-set man with a face like weathered leather, rules the ship with absolute authority. He has the power to flog any man who displeases him. You have seen it done. 30 lashes for talking back. 50 for suspected theft. The cat-o'-nine-tails leaves backs crosshatched with scars that never fully heal. In the merchant service, you are property. Disposable, replaceable. But word travels fast on the water that in every port from Port Royal to Nassau, in every tavern reeking of rum and sweat, sailors whisper stories. Stories of ships that fly the black flag. Stories of crews who elect their own captains and share their plunder equally. Stories of men who took their fate into their own hands and carved out a life of dangerous freedom on the open sea. These are not the stories you heard as a child. Those tales spoke of bloodthirsty monsters, of pirates as demons who murdered without mercy. But here, among the sailors who have seen the truth, the stories are different. They speak of former slaves who became captains, of men who escaped debtor, prison and found fortune, of democratic councils held on deck where every voice carried equal weight. From the youngest cabin boy to the grizzled quartermaster, the Golden Age of Piracy has reached its zenith. From 1715 to 1725, these waters belong as much to the outlaws as to any navy. The War of Spanish Succession has recently ended, and thousands of privateers, sailors licensed by their governments to attack enemy ships during wartime, suddenly find themselves without legal employment. Their letters of marque, those official documents that made them heroes, are now worthless paper. The skills they learned in service to their countries, however, remain sharp. Many choose to continue their profession without permission. The difference between a privateer and a pirate, they say, is merely a matter of paperwork. You think about this as you work. You think about the coins you have saved, barely enough to fill a small purse. You think about the years stretching ahead, each one identical to the last, until your body gives out and you are discarded like a broken tool. You think about the stories. And then, one dawn that begins like any other, everything changes. The lookout's cry cuts through the morning air. Sail ho! Off the starboard bow. Every man on deck turns to look. There, emerging from the mist like a ghost ship, comes a sloop. Sleek, fast, black flag flying from her mainmast. On that flag, a white skull grins above two crossed bones. The Jolly Roger. Your captain barks orders. All hands, prepare to come about. But the pirate ship is faster. She cuts through the water like a knife, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Sloops are built for this, for pursuit, for escape, for the deadly dance of predator and prey. Your merchant vessel, heavy with cargo, lumbers like a pregnant whale. Within 20 minutes, the pirate ship draws alongside. Grappling hooks arc through the air, their iron teeth biting into wood. The two vessels grind together with a sound like a wounded animal. Men pour across the gap, their weapons gleaming in the morning light. Cutlasses, pistols, boarding axes. Their faces are tanned dark by sun and wind, many covered with beards and scars. They move with the coordinated efficiency of experienced fighters. Your captain orders the crew to stand down. Merchant sailors are not trained for combat, and he knows resistance means death. The pirates swarm over the ship, their eyes assessing everything with professional precision. They move through the crew, separating officers from common sailors. Point one pirate, a tall man with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw, stops in front of you. His clothes are a mismatched collection. A fine velvet coat that once belonged to a gentleman, paired with canvas trousers and boots that have seen better days. A brace of pistols hangs across his chest. His eyes, sharp and calculating, study you. You, he says, what's your trade? Able seaman, sir. You reply, sir. He laughs, and several of his companions join in. No sirs here, friend. We're all brothers under the black flag. He gestures toward his ship. How's the food on this floating prison? How's the pay? How many times has your captain had you flogged? You do not answer, but your silence speaks volumes. We're recruiting, the pirate says. Good sailors, fed up with being treated like animals by merchant captains and navy tyrants. We eat meat, we drink fresh water and all the rum we can hold. When we take a prize, every man gets his share voted on by the crew. And no man raises a hand to another except in fair fight. Interested. Around you, other pirates are making similar offers to your crewmates. Some sailors refuse, their faces set in righteous indignation. Others hesitate, torn between the devil they know and the one they do not. A few, their eyes bright with sudden hope, step forward immediately. You think of the years ahead, the hardtack, the floggings, the pennies, the absolute, grinding, soul-crushing monotony of a life lived in service to men who see you as less than human. You step forward. Good man. The pirate grins. Welcome to the brethren of the coast. The pirate ship, you learn, is called the Revenge. She is a swift sloop of 70 feet, armed with 8 cannons and carrying a crew of 75 men. As you climb aboard, stepping from your old life into your new one, you notice immediately that everything is different. The deck is cleaner than any merchant vessel you have served on. The ropes are properly coiled. The sails, though patched in places, are well maintained. These men take pride in their ship, and why should they not? She is their home, their livelihood, their freedom made manifest in wood and canvas. A man approaches you, shorter than average, but powerfully built, with graying hair tied back in a queue. I'm Josiah Blackwell, quartermaster of the Revenge, he says. Before you join this crew, you need to understand how we operate. We're not the savages the authorities make us out to be. We have rules. We have order. Break those rules and there's consequences. He leads you and the other new recruits to the main deck, where the crew gathers. In the center stands the captain, a man named Thomas Anstis. You will learn later, but he makes no move to address you. Instead, Quartermaster Blackwell steps forward. This surprises you. On merchant ships and naval vessels, the captain is absolute authority. But here, you are beginning to realize things work differently. These are the Articles of Agreement, Blackwell announces, producing a worn document. Every man aboard this ship has signed them, and every man is bound by them. Listen close, because your lives depend on understanding these rules. He reads in a clear, carrying voice, and you listen to each article with growing astonishment. Article 1. Every man has a vote in affairs of moment. Every man has equal title to fresh provisions and strong liquors seized. Every man may use them at pleasure, unless scarcity makes it necessary for the good of all to vote a retrenchment. Democracy. These pirates practice democracy. Article 2. Every man shall be called fairly in turn by list on board of prizes, because over and above their proper share, they are allowed a shift of clothes. But if they defraud the company to the value of $1 in plate, jewels, or money, they shall be marooned. Equal opportunity, equal consequence. Article 3. None shall game at cards or dice for money. This one surprises you. You had imagined pirates spending their loot on gambling and debauchery. Article 4. The lights and candles shall be put out at 8 o'clock at night. If any of the crew desire to drink after that hour, they shall sit upon the open deck without lights. Fire is the greatest danger on a wooden ship. This rule makes sense. Article 5. Each man shall keep his piece, pistols, and cutlass clean and ready for action. These are fighting men. Their lives depend on their weapons. Article 6. No boy or woman shall be allowed among the crew. If any man seduce a woman and carry her to sea in disguise, he shall suffer death. Women aboard ship are considered bad luck by many sailors, pirate or otherwise. But more than superstition, this rule prevents the jealousy and violence that might erupt over female attention in close quarters. Blackwell continues through the articles. No striking one another aboard ship. Disputes must be settled on shore by duel if necessary. No desertion in time of battle. Cowardice means death or marooning. Musicians shall have rest on the Sabbath, but on all other days by favor only. Then come the articles governing compensation, and here you pay closest attention. Every man shall receive equal shares of prize money and provisions. The captain shall receive 1½ shares. The quartermaster, boatswain, and gunner, 1¼ shares. Other officers, 1 1/8 shares. The disparity is minimal compared to merchant service, where captains might receive 50 times what common sailors earn. Here, leadership carries responsibility but not grotesque inequality. Compensation for injury sustained in service. Loss of right arm, 600 pieces of 8 or 6 slaves. Loss of left arm, 500 pieces of 8 or 5 slaves. Loss of right leg, 500 pieces of 8 or 5 slaves. Loss of left leg, 400 pieces of 8 or 4 slaves. Loss of eye or finger, 100 pieces of 8 or 1 slave. They even have workers' compensation, you realize with amazement. Disabled pirates will not be cast aside to beg or starve. They will be cared for, their sacrifice recognized in coin or human property. Though the inclusion of slaves in this calculus reminds you that these men, for all their democratic ideals among themselves, are still products of their brutal age. These are our laws, Blackwell concludes. Sign them and you are one of us. Break them and you answer to the entire crew. We are not a merchant ship where the captain's word is absolute. We are not a navy vessel where you can be flogged for looking at an officer wrong. We are a brotherhood, and every man has his say. Do you understand? You nod. Around you, the other recruits do the same. Then make your mark or sign your name. One by one, the new recruits step forward. Some sign their names in educated script. Others, unable to read or write, make their mark. An X, a symbol, a thumbprint in ink. When your turn comes, you take the quill, dip it in the inkwell, and sign your name to the Articles of Agreement. You are a pirate now. The crew cheers and rum is brought forth. Not the watered-down swill of the merchant service, but good dark rum, strong enough to make your eyes water. A man slaps you on the back. Another shakes your hand. These men, outlaws and criminals in the eyes of the law, welcome you as a brother. That night, anchored in a hidden cove off the coast of Hispaniola, you share your first meal as a pirate. Roasted pork, fresh bread, oranges to ward off scurvy. The food is better than anything you have eaten in years. The company is loud and crude, full of men who tell outrageous stories and sing songs that would make a parson faint. But they are free, and now, so are you. As you lie in your hammock that night, the ship gently rocking beneath you, you think about the choice you have made. There is no going back now. If captured, you will hang. Your neck will stretch at the end of a rope, and your body will be tarred and gibbeted as a warning to others. The authorities show no mercy to pirates. But in this moment, with a full belly and the promise of adventure ahead, you do not care. You have chosen danger over safety, freedom over servitude. You have joined the brethren of the coast, and whatever happens next, it will be a life lived on your own terms. The Caribbean night surrounds you. Somewhere in the darkness, waves lap against the hull. Tomorrow you will learn your trade as a pirate. Tonight, for the first time in years, you sleep peacefully. Dawn breaks over turquoise waters, and your education begins. The pirate trade, you quickly discover, is not what you imagined. There is less random violence and more careful planning. Less drunken chaos and more disciplined preparation. The successful pirates, the ones who survive to spend their plunder, approach their profession with the pragmatism of businessmen and the skill of military strategists. Your first teacher is James Fletcher, the ship's gunner, a barrel-chested man from Bristol who lost 2 fingers on his left hand in a naval battle years ago. He takes you below deck to the armory, where the Revenge keeps her weapons. A pirate's life depends on 3 things. Fletcher tells you, his voice rough as sailcloth, good intelligence, superior speed, and overwhelming intimidation. We hunt merchant ships, not warships. We want their cargo, not a fight. Dead merchant crew brings no ransom, and a battle costs us shot, powder, and men. Our goal is to make them surrender without firing a shot. He shows you the arsenal. Cutlasses, short and curved, perfect for fighting in the confined spaces of a ship. Boarding axes, sharp enough to sever rope or limbs with equal efficiency. Pistols, smoothbore flintlocks that hold a single shot. Most pirates carry multiple pistols rather than reload in combat. Muskets for longer range. Grenades made from glass bottles filled with powder and nails. Every weapon must be kept clean and dry. Fletcher instructs. Salt air will rust a blade or foul a pistol's action faster than you can blink. A man whose weapons fail is a dead man. You spend hours learning to care for the arms. How to clean a pistol's firing mechanism. How to sharpen a cutlass properly. How to make cartridges by wrapping powder and shot in paper. The work is tedious but essential. While you are learning weapons maintenance, other crew members teach you the finer points of seamanship. You already know how to handle a ship. Your years in the merchant service taught you that. But pirate tactics require additional skills. The ship sailing master, a weathered African man named Samuel Bellamy, who earned his freedom through piracy, explains the art of pursuit. Speed is everything. We choose our targets based on what they carry and how fast they move. A heavy galleon loaded with silver from the Spanish Main? That's a prize worth taking, but she'll be well armed and escorted. A merchant sloop carrying sugar and rum? Easy pickings, but lower profit. We read ships like you read a book. The way she sits in the water tells us her cargo. The flag she flies tells us her nation. The course she keeps tells us her destination. He points to various vessels visible on the horizon. See that bark? Riding high, empty or nearly so, not worth our time. But that brigantine? Low in the water, making for Jamaica. She's carrying cargo worth taking. You learn to recognize ships by their silhouette. Square-rigged ships for deep ocean voyages. Fore and aft rigged vessels for coastal work. The distinctive lines of naval frigates to be avoided at all costs. Knowledge becomes survival. But the most important lesson comes from Quartermaster Blackwell himself, who takes you aside one afternoon as the ship cruises along the Cuban coast. Most of what we do, he tells you, is psychological. The Black Flag, the Jolly Roger, exists for one purpose: to terrify merchant crews into immediate surrender. When they see that skull and bones, they know we're serious. They know we've killed before and will kill again. But here's the secret: we'd rather not. He leans against the rail, watching the sea. Dead men tell no tales. Aye, but they also don't spread tales. When we let a crew live, when we treat them relatively well after they surrender, they go back to port and tell everyone. The pirates gave us quarter. They took the cargo but left us alive. That makes the next merchant crew more likely to surrender without resistance. But if we massacre a ship that surrenders, the next crew fights to the death, and we lose men we can't afford to lose. This is the calculation of piracy, you realize. violence as theater, reputation as weapon. The most successful pirates are those who inspire such fear that they rarely need to follow through on their threats. Course, Blackwell adds with a dark grin. Sometimes you find a captain who wants to be a hero, who thinks he'll be rewarded for defending his cargo. Those captains learn differently. Over the following weeks, you witness the truth of his words. The Revenge takes 3 prizes, and each encounter follows a similar pattern. First comes the chase. The lookout spots a sail, and the quartermaster calls for a vote. The crew assembles on deck, and Blackwell presents the situation. Merchant ship, likely Dutch by her lines, heading south. We can catch her within 2 hours. All in favor of pursuit. Hands rise. Democracy in action. The vote is nearly unanimous. Only the ship's carpenter, nursing a broken arm, votes against it. The Revenge comes about, her sails filling with wind. She cuts through the water at impressive speed, gaining on the merchant vessel steadily. When you are close enough, the black flag is raised, and sometimes a red flag as well, the bloody flag, meaning no quarter will be given if the chase continues. The merchant ship tries to flee, but she cannot match your speed. Within the hour, you have overtaken her, and your bow chasers fire a warning shot across her bow. The message is clear. Surrender or face the consequences. In 2 of the 3 encounters, the merchant captain strikes his colors immediately. His crew lines up on deck, hands raised, while pirates board and systematically strip the ship of everything valuable. Gold and silver, weapons and ammunition, food and water, medical supplies, clothing, tools, charts and navigation instruments. Anything useful, anything that can be sold. The merchant crews are questioned. How were you treated by your captain? Blackwell always asks. Fair wages? Decent food? Any of you interested in a change of employment? Sometimes men volunteer to join the pirates. Sometimes they beg not to be pressed into service. The pirates generally respect these wishes. Forced men make unreliable crewmates. In the 3rd encounter, however, the merchant captain refuses to surrender. He is a stubborn Englishman who believes his 8 small guns can hold off 75 pirates. He is wrong. The Revenge comes alongside, her own guns loaded with chain shot, linked iron balls that spin through the air, designed to tear through rigging and disable a ship without sinking her. The guns roar, and the merchant ship's foremast topples, her sails collapsing in a tangle of canvas and rope. Now she is helpless. Grappling hooks bite into her hull, and the pirates board in a wave of violence and noise. They howl. Like demons, fire pistols into the air, wave their cutlasses overhead. The sound is designed to terrify, and it works. The merchant crew throws down their weapons and begs for mercy. The captain, still defiant, raises his sword. Captain Anstis steps forward and, with a single economical motion, disarms him. The merchant captain's sword clatters to the deck. Your bravery is admirable, Anstis tells him coldly. Your judgment is not. Surrender and you live. Continue your foolishness, and I'll tie you to your own mast and let you go down with your ship. The captain surrenders. You notice something during these encounters. The pirates are violent when necessary, but they follow rules. They do not harm crew members who surrender. They do not torture for entertainment. When the quartermaster discovers that the captured ship surgeon has been treating sick sailors without adequate supplies, he orders extra medical equipment transferred from the merchant ship's captain's private stores to the communal stores. Merchants and Navy officers live in luxury while their crews suffer, Blackwell explains. We take from the rich and share equally. That's the difference between us and them. Is it justification or rationalization? You are not sure. But you are beginning to understand that piracy, in this golden age, is more complex than simple villainy. It is rebellion against a system that treats common sailors as expendable property. It is an alternate society with its own codes and ethics, however brutal those ethics might be. You are learning your trade, and you are learning what it means to be a pirate. 3 months pass. 3 months of sun and salt, wind and waves. You have become a true member of the crew. Your hands now as weathered as any veteran pirates, your skills sharpened by constant practice and occasional necessity. Life aboard the Revenge settles into a rhythm, punctuated by moments of intense action. Between prizes, between ports, there is the daily work of keeping a ship operational in the harsh Caribbean environment. You rise before dawn, as you have always done at sea. The night watch is ending, and the morning watch is beginning. The deck must be swabbed, the brass polished, the ropes checked for wear. A ship that is not maintained will sink, black flag or no black flag. Breakfast is communal, eaten on deck when weather permits. Porridge made from stolen oats. Salt pork, if you are lucky, fresh fruit from the last raid. The food is simple but plentiful, infinitely better than merchant service rations. The pirates understand that well-fed men work harder and fight better. After breakfast comes weapons practice. Every man must maintain his combat readiness. You drill with cutlass against wooden posts, learning to fight in the confined spaces of a ship's deck. You practice loading and firing pistols, building the muscle memory that might save your life in combat. The gunner supervises artillery drills, and the crew works in coordinated teams to load, aim, and fire the cannons with maximum speed. But life is not all work. The pirates have their entertainments. Music plays constantly. Several crew members are accomplished musicians. A fiddler from Ireland, a drummer from the African coast, a man who plays a battered guitar he won in a card game. They play sea shanties and bawdy songs, folk tunes from a dozen different nations. The music binds the crew together, giving them a shared culture despite their diverse origins. You discover that the crew of the Revenge is remarkably diverse. Englishmen and Scots, Irishmen fleeing poverty, Frenchmen and Dutchmen, Spanish sailors who deserted from colonial ports, Africans, some escaped slaves, others free men who chose the pirate life, native Caribbean people who hate the European colonizers, even a few Americans from the growing colonies to the north. This diversity is typical of pirate crews during the Golden Age. The black flag attracts the dispossessed and the desperate from every nation, every background. On the deck of a pirate ship, your past matters less than your present contribution. A former slave can rise to become quartermaster. A nobleman, who lost everything to gambling debts, can find himself taking orders from a former cabin boy. Competence and courage determine status, not birth or color. There are tensions, of course. Old prejudices do not disappear simply because men share a ship. Arguments erupt over cards, over perceived slights, over the division of loot. But the Articles of Agreement provide a framework for resolving disputes. Minor disagreements are settled by the quartermaster. Serious grievances go to a vote of the entire crew. Duels, when necessary, are conducted formally, with seconds and witnesses, and only after the ship makes land. You witness such a duel one afternoon on a deserted beach. Two men, one English and one French, who have been feuding for weeks over an insult neither will forget. They stand 20 paces apart, pistols loaded, while the crew forms a circle around them. At the quartermaster's signal, they turn and fire. Both shots miss. Honor is satisfied. The men shake hands, and the matter is considered resolved. This is the pirate way. Violence is permitted, but it must be regulated, controlled, or the crew will tear itself apart. The ship makes port regularly, though not in respectable harbors. Nassau in the Bahamas is a pirate haven, a lawless settlement where the black flag flies openly and no authority dares challenge the brethren of the coast. Here, stolen goods are sold to corrupt merchants who ask no questions. Here, pirates spend their shares on rum and women, gambling and clothing, temporary pleasures before the next voyage. You go ashore in Nassau for the first time in April 1716, and the sight amazes you. The harbor is crowded with pirate ships of every size and description. The town itself is a chaotic mix of shanties and stolen finery, where former sailors play. At being gentlemen and former slaves walk as free men. Taverns operate around the clock. The smell of roasting meat mingles with rum and unwashed bodies. You have gold in your pocket, your share of the last 3 prizes. Not a fortune, but more money than you have ever possessed at one time. The temptation to spend it all immediately is powerful, but you remember the articles. Save for the future. A pirate's life is short. A disabled pirate with savings can retire to a quiet plantation or a small business. Still, you allow yourself some pleasures. A new shirt, made of fine linen instead of rough canvas. A pair of boots that actually fit. A night in a tavern, drinking and listening to the stories of pirates from other crews. The stories reveal much about the pirate world. Some crews are democratic like the Revenge. Others are tyrannical, ruled by captains as brutal as any naval commander. Some pirates prey exclusively on Spanish shipping, claiming patriotic motives. Others take any vessel they can catch, regardless of nationality. Some pirates are former privateers who cannot adjust to peacetime. Others are escaped criminals who fled to the sea to avoid the gallows. You hear names that are already becoming legendary. Edward Teach, called Blackbeard, who commands the Queen Anne's Revenge and inspires terror with his wild appearance and theatrical violence. Black Sam Bellamy, who captains the Witta galley and calls himself the Prince of Pirates. Charles Vane, known for his cruelty. Calico Jack Rackham, who will later become famous for having 2 women among his crew, and Bonnie and Mary Red, who fight as fiercely as any man. These are the celebrities of the pirate world, and their exploits are discussed with admiration and envy. But you also hear the warnings. Piracy is becoming more dangerous. The European powers, tired of losing ships and cargo, are dedicating more naval resources to hunting pirates. Pirate havens are being closed one by one. Men are being captured, tried, and hanged in increasing numbers. The Golden Age is approaching its zenith, which means it is also approaching its end. But in 1716, with gold in your pocket and rum in your belly, the future seems very far away. Back aboard the Revenge, life continues. The ship sails north to the American colonies, seeking prizes among the merchant traffic between Boston and the Caribbean. She cruises south to the Spanish Main, hoping to intercept treasure ships carrying silver from South American mines. She dodges naval patrols and rides out storms. She hunts, and occasionally she is hunted. You grow stronger, more confident, more skilled. You can load and fire a pistol in less than 15 seconds. You can climb the rigging in darkness without hesitation. You can judge wind and current by feel. You are becoming what every pirate must be. A sailor who can fight, a fighter who can sail. The crew becomes your family. You know each man's story, his strengths and weaknesses. You know who can be trusted in a fight and who might flinch. You know who drinks too much and who hoards his money. You share their dangers and their triumphs. And you realize something unexpected. Despite the violence, despite the illegality, despite the constant risk of death or capture, you are happier than you have ever been. You are free. You are part of something. You have agency over your own life. This is the seduction of piracy. Not the gold, though that helps. Not the adventure, though that attracts many. But the simple, profound experience of living as a free man in an age when freedom is a rare commodity for common people. Of course, freedom comes with a price. And that price is written in the water ahead, though you cannot yet see it clearly. It is July 1716 when the Revenge encounters the Fortune, and your life changes forever. The Fortune is a Dutch merchantman, large and deep-hulled, clearly carrying valuable cargo. She travels alone, without escort, a mistake that will cost her owner dearly. The lookout spots her at dawn, her white sails catching the early light like a beacon. The crew vote is swift and unanimous. This is exactly the kind of prize the Revenge seeks. Not so powerful that taking her will be costly, but valuable. Enough to make every man rich for months. The chase begins. The Fortune sees you coming and tries to run, but her heavy cargo makes her slow. Your sleek sloop closes the distance steadily. By mid-morning, you are within cannon range. The black flag goes up. The red flag follows. Captain Anstis himself calls across the water through a speaking trumpet, his voice carrying clearly across the waves. Strike your colors and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we show no mercy. For a long minute, nothing happens. The Dutch crew can be seen on the Fortune's deck, arguing among themselves. The captain stands at the rail, clearly torn between duty and survival. You can see it in his posture, the desire to run, the knowledge that running is futile. Then, slowly, the Dutch flag comes down. Surrender. Grappling hooks fly. The two ships grind together. You are among the first wave of boarders, cutlass in hand, pistol thrust through your belt. Your heart pounds with anticipation and fear. Every boarding is dangerous, even when the crew surrenders. Desperate men do desperate things. But the Dutch crew offers no resistance. They stand with hands raised as the pirates swarm over their ship. Quartermaster Blackwell immediately begins organizing the plunder. Fletcher, secure the officers. Bellamy, take a party below and catalog the cargo. He points to you. Guard that hatch. No one goes below without my permission. You take your position at the main cargo hatch, cutlass ready. Around you, the organized chaos of a successful pirate raid unfolds. The Dutch crew is herded to one side of the deck. Their weapons are collected and thrown overboard. Pirate specialists begin their work. The ship's carpenter examines the Fortune's hull and rigging, assessing her condition. The gunner inspects her cannon. The sailing master studies her charts and navigation instruments. Every aspect of the prize is evaluated with professional thoroughness. Below deck, the inventory reveals treasure beyond expectation. The Fortune is carrying sugar, indigo, and spices, valuable commodities. But she also carries something more precious. A strongbox containing gold coins and jewelry, payment from merchants in Amsterdam. When the strongbox is brought on deck and opened, the pirates cheer. There is enough wealth here to give every man a share worth months of merchant sailor wages. But there is something else in the hold, something that creates an immediate moral dilemma. Among the cargo are 42 African slaves, chained in the darkness. Men, women, and several children, being transported to work the sugar plantations of the Caribbean. They stare at their pirate captors with eyes that have already seen too much suffering. The crew of the Revenge gathers to discuss this discovery. The Articles of Agreement do not address slaves as cargo specifically, though some pirates traffic in human beings just as readily as any merchant. But Captain Anstis has always forbidden the slave trade, and many crew members share his revulsion for the practice. Quartermaster Blackwell calls for a vote. We have 3 options. First, we sell them at Nassau and split the profit. Second, we transport them to safe harbor and free them. Third, we free them now here and let them choose their own path. Stay aboard as crew, return to the Dutch ship, or take their chances. The debate is heated. Some pirates argue for profit slaves are valuable cargo, and they are already criminals. Why limit their income? Others argue for freedom. How can men who claim to have escaped servitude themselves participate in enslaving others? A few point out the practical dangers of releasing slaves in the middle of the Caribbean, far from any safe haven. You listen to the arguments, your own conscience wrestling with the question. You have seen the brutality of slavery in every port. You know that the sugar plantations are death sentences, that most slaves survive only a few years of brutal labor before disease or exhaustion claims them. But you also know that good intentions do not guarantee good outcomes. What happens to freed slaves with no resources, no protection, in waters controlled by European powers? Finally, Captain Anstis speaks. He rarely imposes his will on the crew, preferring to let democracy take its course. But on this matter, his voice carries weight. I say we give them the choice, he announces. Unlock the chains. Offer them freedom and the opportunity to join us under the Articles if they wish. Those who prefer to take their chances elsewhere, we provision them with food and water and set them ashore at the nearest friendly settlement. And those who wish it, we return to the Fortune and let the Dutch deal with their consciences. The vote is called. After long minutes of debate, the majority agrees with the captain's proposal. Principles, it seems, matter to these pirates, at least in this moment on this day. You are part of the group that goes below to free the captives. The smell hits you first, human waste, fear, and despair in the hot darkness. Your torch reveals faces etched with suffering. The chains are heavy, rusted with moisture and blood from where the iron has rubbed skin. You work at the locks with a captured key. You wonder what you have become. A liberator? A criminal with a moment of conscience? Both? Neither? The complexity of it all makes your head swim. The freed captives emerge into sunlight, blinking and uncertain. Blackwell addresses them in English, which a few understand, while one of your crew, a former slave himself, translates into several African languages. You are free, Blackwell tells them. We offer you 3 paths. Join our crew and live by our articles as free men and women. Be transported to a settlement where you can start new lives. Or return to that ship and take your chances with the Dutch. Not one chooses the Dutch ship. 16 of the freed slaves choose to join the Revenge, willing to exchange one dangerous life for another that at least offers freedom and agency. The others ask to be taken to the nearest safe port. Among those who join is a young man named Kwame, perhaps 20 years old, who speaks some English learned from a missionary before his capture. His eyes burn with anger and determination. I fight, he tells Blackwell simply. I fight anyone who tries to chain me again. Then you're with the right crew, Blackwell responds. The Fortune herself becomes a subject of debate. She is too valuable to simply let go, but she is also too slow to keep up with. The Revenge. The crew votes to sail her to Nassau and sell her there, splitting the proceeds. A prize crew of 20 men is selected to sail her, with Quartermaster Blackwell temporarily commanding. You remain aboard the Revenge with Captain Anstis and the rest of the crew. The 2 ships part ways, the Fortune heading toward Nassau while the Revenge continues her cruise, hunting for more prizes. Over the following weeks, the new crew members integrate into the ship's company. Kwame proves himself a quick learner, mastering the basics of seamanship with impressive speed. He is also fearless in combat. When the Revenge takes her next prize, a small Portuguese vessel carrying wine and cork, Kwame is among the first boarders, fighting with a fury that impresses even the most hardened pirates. At night, in the informal gatherings on deck where pirates share stories and rum, Kwame tells his tale. He was a farmer in West Africa, captured by slavers who burned his village and murdered his family. He spent 3 months in a slave fort on the coast before being packed into a ship's hold for the Middle Passage, a journey where disease killed half the captives before they reached the Caribbean. They treat us like cattle, he says, his voice hard. Less than cattle. At least cattle are not beaten for the entertainment of the crew. At least cattle are given enough food to stay healthy. We were cargo. Disposable cargo. His story is not unique. Among the pirates, you hear similar tales from men of every background. English sailors pressed into naval service and flogged for minor infractions. Irishmen whose lands were seized by colonial authorities. Frenchmen fleeing debtors' prison. Spaniards who ran away from the brutal discipline of colonial governors. The Revenge becomes a floating refuge for the dispossessed, a multi-ethnic rebellion against the established order. It is not perfect, prejudices and conflicts still arise, but it functions, held together by shared grievances and the promise of plunder. By the time the Revenge reunites with Blackwell and the prize crew in Nassau 2 months later, you have participated in 7 more raids. The ship's hold is full of valuable goods. Your own share of the plunder has grown to a small fortune by common sailor standards, perhaps 200 pieces of 8, enough to live comfortably for a year or more if spent wisely. Nassau has changed since your last visit. More ships, more pirates, more chaos. The settlement has become the de facto capital of the Pirate Republic, a place where English authority exists in name only. The nominal governor cowers in his fort while thousands of pirates roam the streets freely. But there are also signs of coming storm. In the taverns, you hear worried discussions. The British government is losing patience with the pirates. A new governor is being appointed, a man with both military experience and royal authority to negotiate or eliminate the pirate problem. His name is Woodes Rogers, and his reputation precedes him. A former privateer himself, he understands the pirate mind. Some pirates scoff at the threat. Others begin to consider alternatives. Pardons are being offered to pirates who surrender voluntarily. Legitimate employment as privateers might be available if another war breaks out. A few talk of retiring to remote settlements where they can live out their lives in peace. You are sitting in a Nassau tavern called the 3 Crowns when you overhear a conversation that chills your blood. They hanged 37 pirates in Jamaica last month. A scarred sailor tells his companions. 37 in one day. Strung them up like fish on a line. left the bodies hanging as a warning. Jamaica's always been dangerous. Another responds. That's why we stay here in Nassau. For now, the first man says darkly. But how long before the Royal Navy comes for Nassau itself? The question hangs in the air, unanswered. You finish your rum and leave the tavern, walking down to the harbor where the Revenge sits at anchor. The ship rocks gently in the evening tide, her black flag barely visible in the gathering darkness. She represents everything you have chosen: freedom, adventure, danger, and the constant threat of violent death. Standing on the dock, you contemplate the future. You could take your accumulated wealth and disappear. Find some remote island or colonial settlement where no one asks questions. Live quietly, perhaps start a small business, fade into anonymity. But you know you will not. The pirate life has its hooks in you now. The freedom, the brotherhood, the thrill of the chase. These are addictions more powerful than rum or tobacco. You are a pirate, and you will remain a pirate until the sea or the hangman claims you. The decision made, you return to the ship, climbing aboard as the evening watch is being set. Tomorrow, the Revenge will sail again, seeking new prizes in waters that grow more dangerous with each passing month. The Golden Age continues, but shadows are lengthening. And in those shadows, forces gather that will bring this brief, violent, democratic experiment to an end. October 1716 brings the hurricane season into full fury, and with it, challenges that test the crew of the Revenge in ways no naval patrol could match. You are 3 days out of Nassau, cruising the Florida coast, when the weather turns. The sky transforms from brilliant blue to an ominous gray-green within an hour. The wind shifts, becomes erratic, then begins to build with terrifying speed. The barometer drops like a stone. Captain Anstis reads the signs and acts immediately. All hands, strike the topgallants. Secure everything that can be secured. Batten down the hatches. The crew moves with practiced efficiency, but you can feel the fear rippling through the ship. Sailors are more terrified of storms than combat. An enemy can be fought, intimidated, outmaneuvered. A hurricane simply destroys, indifferent to courage or skill. Within 2 hours, the hurricane hits with apocalyptic force. Wind howls like a living thing, screaming through the rigging at speeds that defy comprehension. Waves rise like mountains, lifting the Revenge to dizzying heights before dropping her into troughs so deep that the sky disappears. Rain falls horizontally, stinging like needles, reducing visibility to mere feet. You are on deck, lashed to the mainmast with rope to prevent being washed overboard. Your task is to help keep the ship pointed into the wind. If she turns broadside to these waves, she will roll and sink in seconds. Around you, other crew members struggle at their posts, their faces set in grim determination. The wave crashes over the bow, and suddenly you are underwater. The sea holds you, crushes you, tries to tear you away from the mast. Your lungs burn. Your vision goes dark. The rope around your waist cuts into your flesh with agonizing pressure. Then, impossibly, the water recedes, and you gasp air and spray, coughing, barely conscious. Hold fast! Someone screams nearby, the words barely audible over the storm's roar. Hold fast! For 18 hours, the hurricane batters the Revenge. Men are injured. Equipment is lost overboard. The mainmast cracks, not enough to fall, but enough to require immediate repairs once the storm passes. One man, a French sailor named Pierre, is swept away despite being lashed down. He simply vanishes into the chaos of water and wind. There one moment and gone the next. No one can search for him. No one could find him if they tried. The sea has claimed him, as it will claim you all if the ship fails. But the Revenge does not fail. She is well-built, well-maintained, and crewed by men who know their trade. She survives. When dawn finally breaks on the third day, the storm has moved on, leaving a world scrubbed clean and eerily calm. The damage assessment reveals losses but no fatal wounds. The mainmast needs repair. Several guns have broken free of their moorings during the storm and will require extensive work. The ship's boats have been smashed. Provisions are damaged, barrels of water contaminated by seawater, food supplies ruined. But the Revenge floats, and most of her crew lives. You help with repairs, working until your hands bleed, grateful to be alive. The near-death experience changes something in you. You have faced combat before, but that was quick, decisive, over in minutes. The storm was an 18-hour confrontation with oblivion, and it has left you shaken in a way that sword fights never did. Kwame, working beside you on the mainmast repairs, notices your expression. The sea is the real enemy, he says quietly. Not the British, not the Spanish, the sea. She lets us sail on her surface, but she can take us whenever she wants. We are nothing to her. His words carry a wisdom that comes from understanding powerlessness. He has survived slavery, survived the Middle Passage, survived the pirate life. The storm is simply one more reminder that survival is temporary and conditional. The Revenge limps to a sheltered cove on the Cuban coast for more extensive repairs. Here, hidden from passing ships, the crew spends 2 weeks refitting the vessel. The work is hard but necessary. A damaged ship is a vulnerable ship, and vulnerability in pirate waters means death. It is during these repairs that the first betrayal occurs. One of the crew members, a man named William Morton, has been secretly planning to steal a ship's boat and escape with a portion of the plunder. He recruits 3 others to his scheme, promising them that they can reach Spanish territory and negotiate a pardon in exchange for information about pirate operations. His plot is discovered when one of his recruits, a young sailor named Tom Griffiths, gets drunk and talks too freely in front of Quartermaster Blackwell. The quartermaster investigates quietly, confirms the conspiracy, and brings the matter before the entire crew. The 4 conspirators are made to stand on the deck while their crime is explained. Morton tries to justify himself. I signed on for plunder, not for dying in a storm or dancing at the end of a rope. I've got enough gold to live quiet somewhere. Why shouldn't I take it and go? Captain Anstis responds with cold fury. You signed the articles. Every man here signed the articles. You swore an oath to this crew. You planned to steal from your brothers, to betray our location to our enemies. You put every man here at risk for your own cowardice. The crew votes on punishment. The options are flogging, marooning, or execution. After heated debate, the decision is marooning for Morton, the ringleader, and flogging for the others who followed his lead. You watch as Morton is taken to a tiny, barren island visible from the cove. He is given a pistol with 1 shot, a bottle of water, and nothing else. As the boat rows away, leaving him standing on that desolate rock, you hear him screaming curses that echo across the water. That's a death sentence. Someone mutters beside you. Blackwell responds, but slower than hanging, and he has a chance. Maybe another ship passes by. Maybe he survives. Probably not, but maybe. That's more mercy than he showed us. The 3 followers receive 20 lashes each, administered by the ship's bosun with a regulation Cat O' tails. You are required to watch, as is every crew member. This is justice, pirate style. Public, democratic, brutal. The men scream with each stroke, and their backs are raw meat by the end. They will recover, eventually, but they will carry the scars forever, and every man will know they tried to betray their brothers. The incident casts a shadow over the crew. Trust, so essential to pirate life, has been damaged. Men look at their companions with new suspicion. Who else might be planning betrayal? Who else might turn informant when the noose draws close? Morale deteriorates further when, a week after leaving Cuba, the Revenge encounters a Royal Navy patrol ship, a 6th-rate frigate with 26 guns and a crew of over 100 men. She is too powerful to fight, too fast to easily outrun. The chase lasts 7 hours, with the Revenge using every trick of seamanship to maintain her lead. You help adjust the sails, shifting them to catch every breath of wind. The crew throws supplies overboard to lighten the ship. Even one of the cannons goes into the sea, sacrificed for speed. The Navy frigate gains slowly, remorselessly. Her bow chasers fire, sending cannonballs whistling overhead, but the range is too great for accuracy. Finally, as sunset approaches, the Revenge finds salvation in the shallows near the Bahamas. The frigate, with her deeper draft, cannot follow without risking running aground. She gives up the chase, and the pirates escape once again. But the encounter is sobering. The Royal Navy is becoming more aggressive, dedicating more resources to hunting pirates. The safe spaces are shrinking. Nassau remains relatively secure, but for how much longer? That night, as the Revenge anchors in a protected lagoon, the crew gathers on deck. Captain Anstis addresses them with unusual gravity. We had a hard few months, he says. Storm, betrayal, near capture by the Navy. Some of you are wondering if this life is worth the risk. I won't lie to you, it's getting more dangerous. The world is closing in on us. He pauses, letting his words sink in. But we knew this when we hoisted the black flag. We chose freedom over safety. We chose to be masters of our own fate, even if that fate is short. I'm staying on this ship until she sinks or I hang. But any man who wants to leave can do so in Nassau. No judgment, no shame. Take your share and go. No one speaks. The only sound is the gentle lap of waves against the hull and the distant calls of night birds. Finally, Kwame stands. I have nowhere else to go, he says simply. I was nothing. I was property. On this ship, I am a man. I stay. Others voice similar sentiments. One by one, the crew reaffirms its commitment. Not because piracy is easy or safe, but because the alternative, returning to a world that treats common people as disposable, is worse than the danger. You add your voice to the chorus. I stay. Captain Anstis nods, satisfaction crossing his weathered face. Then we sail together. Brothers to the end, whatever that end may be. The decision made, rum is distributed, and the crew drinks to survival, to freedom, to each other. The music starts, fiddle and drum, and despite everything, despite the storm and the betrayal and the Navy patrol, spirits rise, but later, lying in your hammock as the ship rocks gently at anchor, you cannot sleep. You think about Morton, alone on his island, probably dead by now. You think about Pierre, drowned in the hurricane. You think about the Navy frigate and how close you came to capture. The Golden Age is ending. You can feel it in the changing wind. How much longer can this fragile republic of pirates survive? Outside, someone begins to sing a melancholy shanty about sailors far from home. The words drift through the darkness, equal parts defiance and elegy. You listen until sleep finally claims you, carrying you into dreams of endless horizons and gathering storms. January 1717 marks the beginning of the Revenge's most profitable and most dangerous period. The crew, hardened by storm and survival, embraces a more aggressive strategy. Captain Anstis and Quartermaster Blackwell decide to hunt bigger prizes, accepting greater risks for greater rewards. Your first major target is the San Cristobal, a Spanish merchantman traveling from Veracruz to Cadiz, laden with silver from the Mexican mines. Intelligence about the ship comes from a network of informants that pirates maintain in every major port: corrupt harbor officials, disgruntled sailors, merchants willing to sell information for a price. The San Cristobal travels with an armed escort, a smaller frigate carrying 16 guns. Taking her will require cunning as well as courage. Blackwell devises the plan during a council of war held in the captain's cabin. All senior crew members attend, including you. Your experience and reliability have earned you an informal position as one of the ship's leaders. We can't fight them both at once, Blackwell explains, using captured charts to illustrate his strategy. But we can separate them. The San Cristobal is slower than her escort. If we can lure the frigate away, we can take the merchant ship before the escort realizes what's happening. The plan requires a second ship, and fortunately, the Revenge has recently formed an alliance with another pirate vessel, the Drake, captained by a ruthless Welshman named David Jones. Together, the two ships execute an elaborate deception. The Drake approaches the Spanish ship's flying French colors, signaling that she needs assistance. Damaged masts taking on water requesting help. It is a common enough situation in these waters. The Spanish escort, obligated by maritime tradition to offer aid, separates from the San Cristobal to investigate. The moment the frigate commits to helping the Drake, the Revenge strikes from the opposite direction, bearing down on the now vulnerable merchant ship at full speed. By the time the Spanish escort realizes the deception, it is too late. The Revenge has already closed with the San Cristobal, grappling hooks are flying, and pirates are boarding. You are among the first wave, cutlass in hand, a pistol clenched between your teeth. The Spanish crew puts up fierce resistance. They know that losing this cargo means disgrace or worse from their masters. The deck becomes a chaos of violence. A Spanish sailor lunges at you with a boarding pike. You deflect it with your cutlass, the impact jarring your arm, and then you are inside his guard, your blade finding his ribs. He falls with a cry that is lost in the general din of combat. You do not pause to watch him die. There is no time for reflection in battle, no space for humanity. There is only survival. Around you, pirates and Spanish sailors hack at each other with desperate ferocity. The deck runs slick with blood. Men scream and curse in half a dozen languages. The smell of gunpowder and death fills the air. Kwame fights nearby, wielding a boarding axe with terrifying efficiency. He has become one of the Revenge's most feared fighters, his hatred of European authority channeled into pure combat skill. You watch him dispatch two opponents in quick succession, his movements economical and deadly. The Spanish captain, a gray-haired man with a neatly trimmed beard, rallies his men for a final stand near the quarterdeck. He is brave, you grant him that. Foolish but brave. He could surrender and save lives, but Spanish honor forbids it. Captain Anstis faces him directly. The two captains fight while their crews battle around them. A duel within the larger conflict. Steel rings against steel. The Spanish captain is skilled, but Anstis is better. After a furious exchange that lasts perhaps 30 seconds, the Spanish captain is disarmed, Anstis's cutlass at his throat. Yield! Anstis commands. The Spanish captain looks at his decimated crew, at the pirates overwhelming his ship, and finally, his shoulders sag. I yield. The fight is over. The Spanish crew surrenders, and the pirates take control. Casualties are counted, 8 dead and 14 wounded among the Spanish, 5 dead and 9 wounded among the pirates. One of the dead is a man you knew well, a Scottish sailor named Malcolm who taught you how to splice rope properly when you first joined the crew. He lies on the deck with a pistol ball through his chest. His eyes still open, staring at nothing. You help carry his body to the rail, along with the other dead pirates. They are sewn into canvas shrouds weighted with shot and committed to the sea with brief words from Captain Anstis. No elaborate ceremony, just acknowledgement of lives lived and lost. The Spanish dead receive the same treatment. Pirates may be outlaws, but they respect the traditions of the sea. Death makes equals of all sailors. Meanwhile, Blackwell and a team of specialists descend into the San Cristobal's hold, and what they find exceeds all expectations. The ship carries 40,000 pieces of 8 in silver coins, along with bars of silver, worked gold, emeralds from Colombian mines, and valuable trade goods. When the treasure is brought on deck and tallied, the crew's excitement is palpable. This is the prize of a lifetime, wealth beyond most men's dreams. Divided according to the articles, every man's share will be substantial enough to retire on, should he choose. But there is a complication. The Spanish escort frigate has broken away from the Drake and is racing back toward the San Cristobal. She is outgunned by the two pirate ships together, but she is still a threat, and Captain Jones of the Drake sends a signal, fight or flee. The crews of both pirate ships vote. The decision is nearly unanimous, flee. They have the prize. Fighting risks losing men and ships for no additional gain. This is not cowardice. It is business sense. The pirates transfer the most valuable cargo to their own ships and set fire to the San Cristobal. As the two pirate vessels race away, the Spanish merchantman burns behind them, black smoke billowing into the Caribbean sky. The escort frigate reaches her too late to save her. That evening, safely away from pursuit, the pirates divide the plunder. Your share comes to nearly 800 pieces of 8, plus a small gold chain and a pair of silver candlesticks. It is more money than you have ever possessed. More money than your father earned in his entire life. The crew celebrates with rum and music, their voices carrying across the water. They have earned this moment. They have risked everything and won. For tonight they are not hunted criminals. They are victorious warriors, masters of their fate. But Quartermaster Blackwell takes you aside during the celebration, his expression serious despite the general jubilation. You fought well today, he tells you. Calico Tom's been teaching you his way with a blade, I see. You nod. Calico Tom, one of the crew's most experienced fighters, has indeed been training you in advanced swordplay. You're becoming one of the ship's key men. Blackwell continues. Men listen to you. They trust you. That means you have responsibilities beyond fighting and sailing. He gestures toward the celebrating crew. Look at them. They think today was a triumph. And it was. But it was also a declaration of war. We didn't just rob a Spanish merchant. We robbed the King of Spain himself. That silver was crown property. Madrid will want revenge, and they have long memories and longer reach. Are you saying we shouldn't have taken the prize? You ask. No, I'm saying we need to be smarter about what comes next. The big prizes draw big attention. Every nation with ships in the Caribbean will be hunting us now. We need to plan our next moves carefully. His words prove prophetic. Within 3 weeks, wanted posters appear in every major port, describing the Revenge and her crew in detail, offering substantial rewards for information leading to capture. The Spanish governor in Havana puts a price on Captain Anstis's head, 1,000 pieces of 8, dead or alive. You are now not just a pirate, but a specifically hunted pirate. The difference matters. Before, you were one of thousands of anonymous outlaws. Now, you are wanted by name. Your description circulated among Navy captains and colonial governors. The pressure intensifies throughout the spring. The Revenge takes several more prizes, but each success brings increased attention. Navy patrols multiply. Merchant ships begin traveling in convoys with heavy escorts. Pirate havens come under increasing scrutiny. Then, in April 1717, comes news that changes everything. Woodes Rogers, the new governor of the Bahamas, is offering a royal pardon to any pirate who surrenders before a specified deadline. Full amnesty for all crimes committed before the date of the proclamation. A chance to walk away from piracy without hanging. The crew debates this development with intensity that borders on violence. Some men see the pardon as salvation, a chance to enjoy their plunder without constantly looking over their shoulders. Others see it as a trap, a way to identify and eventually punish pirates who are foolish enough to trust royal mercy. They'll take our names, take our locations, and then they'll come. For us anyway, argues one sailor. British justice has no honor. Or maybe they're serious, counters another. Maybe they're offering a real way out. The arguments continue for days. Captain Anstis remains neutral, insisting that each man must decide for himself. I won't take the pardon, he states flatly. I don't trust it, and I don't want their forgiveness. But any man who does can leave with his share and my blessing. When the vote is finally called, 19 members of the crew, nearly a quarter, choose to accept the pardon and leave pirate life behind. You watch them depart in Nassau, taking their accumulated wealth and gambling that the British government will honor its word. You are not among them. Something holds you to this life: pride, stubbornness, or perhaps the simple inability to imagine yourself back in ordinary society. You have tasted freedom, and you cannot willingly return to servitude, even legal servitude. Those who remain on the Revenge are the hardcore, the truly committed, the men who will sail under the black flag until death or capture ends their voyage. The crew is smaller now, but perhaps stronger for it. Every man knows that they are bound together. By choice, by shared fate, by an unwavering commitment to their dangerous freedom. That as the Revenge sails out of Nassau for what will be the last time, you stand at the rail and watch the pirate haven recede into the distance. The sun sets behind the settlement, painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson that look like blood and fire. Somewhere ahead lies another prize, another storm, another battle. And somewhere behind, drawing closer with each passing day, comes the inevitable reckoning. The Golden Age is ending. But tonight, under a sky full of stars, the black flag still flies, and you are still free. Woodes Rogers arrives in Nassau in July 1717 with a fleet of 7 ships, 400 soldiers, and a royal mandate to end the pirate republic by any means necessary. The news reaches the Revenge through a fast sloop sent by friendly informants, and it is grim. Rogers wastes no time demonstrating his intentions. 8 pirates who refuse the pardon are captured immediately and subjected to a swift trial. They are hanged in public, their bodies left dangling from gibbets constructed specifically for this purpose. The message is unmistakable. The age of pirate impunity is over. More significant than the executions is Rogers's success at dividing the pirate community. Hundreds accept the pardon, including some famous captains. The promise of amnesty, combined with the threat of overwhelming force, fragments the loose confederation of pirates that once dominated these waters. The Revenge, along with several other holdout ships, retreats to more remote hideouts. You establish a temporary base in the Cayman Islands, in a hidden cove accessible only to pilots who know the treacherous reefs. Here, the crew debates their options. "We could head to Madagascar," suggests one sailor. "Pirates have been operating out of there for decades. The British can't reach that far. Madagascar is half a world away." Someone counters. "Most of us wouldn't survive the crossing. And what's waiting there? Other pirates who'll see us as competition? We could turn privateer if France and Spain go to war again," offers another. "Get legitimate papers. Keep doing what we do but with legal protection. And if war doesn't come," Blackwell asks sharply, "wait around like dogs hoping for table scraps?" The discussions continue for days, but no clear consensus emerges. The crew is divided between those who want to continue active piracy, those who favor lying low until the situation improves, and a few who privately consider accepting the pardon after all. The decision is forced upon you by circumstances. While watering at a small island off Jamaica, the Revenge is surprised by 2 Royal Navy sloops that have been systematically searching these remote locations. The brief chase ends with the pirate ship once again escaping into shallow waters. But it is too close, too frightening. "They're hunting us specifically," Captain Anstis says grimly after the encounter. "Someone has informed on our locations. Someone who knew our usual hiding places." The realization that a traitor exists among the crew, or worse, that one of the pardoned pirates has sold information, creates an atmosphere of paranoia. Trust erodes further. Men watch each other with suspicion. The democratic spirit that once characterized pirate society gives way to darker impulses. Then, in September, comes disaster. The Revenge intercepts what appears to be an easy target, a small merchant brig traveling alone near the Cuban coast. The usual approach is executed, the chase, the black flag, the surrender demand. But as the pirates board, they discover their mistake. The merchant crew are actually disguised Royal Navy sailors, and the ship is a trap. Concealed gunports open, revealing cannons. Hidden soldiers emerge from below decks. The pirates suddenly find themselves outnumbered and ambushed on an enemy vessel. The fighting is vicious and desperate. You battle back toward the Revenge, your cutlass red to the hilt, Kwame at your side swinging his boarding axe with methodical fury. Pirates fall around you, so do Navy sailors. The deck becomes a slaughterhouse. Captain Anstis rallies the crew, and through sheer ferocity, the pirates fight their way back to their own ship. Lines are cut, and the Revenge separates from the trap ship in a hail of musket fire. But the cost is terrible. 15 men dead, including Quartermaster Blackwell, shot through the head as he led the retreat. Another 20 wounded, some who will certainly die from their injuries. The loss of Blackwell is devastating. He was the soul of the ship, the man who maintained discipline and fairness, who kept the democratic system functioning. Without him, the Revenge is diminished anew. Quartermaster must be elected. The vote is contentious. Some support a cautious sailor who wants to lie low. Others favor a more aggressive fighter. You are surprised when your own name is proposed by Kwame and seconded by several other crew members. You've proven yourself, Kwame argues. In combat, in storms, in decisions. Men trust you. You understand Blackwell's ways. The vote is close, but you win by a margin of 6. At the age of 24, having been a pirate for less than 2 years, You become quartermaster of the Revenge, second in command, responsible for maintaining discipline and representing the crew's interests. The responsibility weighs heavily. You are now the voice of men whose lives hang by threads, who have chosen impossible freedom over certain servitude, who face death or capture with every sunrise. Your first act as quartermaster is to institute a new protocol. No more approaching unknown ships without extensive observation. The trap that killed Blackwell cannot be allowed to succeed again. You also implement a system of scouts and signals, borrowing tactics from naval warfare to make the Revenge harder to surprise. But defense alone cannot sustain a pirate crew. They need prizes to survive. In October, you personally lead the planning for a raid on a small Spanish settlement on the Venezuelan coast. Not a major town, but a trading post where goods are consolidated for shipment to Caracas. The raid is executed at night. 40 pirates land in boats, moving silently through the darkness. You have studied military tactics, learning from captured naval manuals. The approach is methodical. Scouts first, then assault teams with a reserve force ready to cover the retreat. The attack succeeds brilliantly. The settlement's small garrison is overwhelmed before they can organize effective resistance. The warehouses are looted of valuable goods, indigo, cacao, tobacco, and a small amount of gold. The pirates are back aboard ship before dawn, and the Revenge disappears into the coastal islands before Spanish authorities can respond. It is your first command action, and its success solidifies your position as quartermaster. The crew's confidence in you grows, but so does the weight of responsibility. Every decision you make might mean the difference between survival and destruction. As 1717 draws to a close, the situation for pirates continues to deteriorate. More captains accept pardons. More pirate havens are closed. The Royal Navy intensifies its patrols. The Spanish colonial authorities, enraged by the San Cristobal theft and subsequent raids, dedicate substantial resources to hunting the Revenge specifically. The noose is tightening, and everyone aboard ship knows it. One night, unable to sleep, you stand at the rail watching moonlight paint silver pathways across dark water. Captain Anstis joins you, his footsteps barely audible on the deck. "Can't sleep either?" he asks, leaning against the rail beside you. "Too much to think about," you reply. He nods, understanding. "Blackwell told me once that being quartermaster means carrying everyone's fears along with your own. I didn't appreciate what he meant until I watched you these past months. I keep wondering how much longer we can do this." You admit, "The world is closing in." "It is," Anstis agrees. "But that doesn't mean we surrender. Some men die in their beds. We're not those men. We chose the black flag knowing where it leads. To the gallows? Maybe. Or to freedom until our last breath. Which is more than most men ever have." He pulls out a flask of rum and offers it to you. You drink, the liquid burning down your throat, warming your belly. "I've been thinking about Tortuga," Anstis says. "The French have less interest in hunting pirates than the British. We could operate from their hit targets along the Spanish Main. Maybe join forces with some of the French boucaniers." "Running?" you ask. "Adapting," he corrects. "A good captain knows when to fight and when to maneuver. Right now, these waters are too hot. We need to give Rogers and his navy something else to worry about besides us." It is a reasonable strategy, and when you present it to the crew the next morning, they vote to approve it. The Revenge will relocate to Tortuga, establish a new base of operations, and focus on Spanish targets, playing colonial powers against each other, using European rivalries to their advantage. But before they can implement this plan, one final disaster strikes. A member of the crew, a man named Robert Deal who joined only 6 months ago, has been secretly communicating with authorities. He carries a hidden message promising to lead the Royal Navy to the Revenge's location in exchange for a substantial reward and guaranteed pardon. His betrayal is discovered by accident when another crew member stumbles upon him preparing to launch a boat at night with a letter concealed in a waterproof pouch. The alarm is raised. Deal is seized before he can escape. The trial is swift. Deal confesses everything, hoping that honesty will earn him mercy. It does not. The crew votes unanimously for execution. The articles are clear. Betrayal of the company means death. You are required, as quartermaster, to carry out the sentence. It is one of your duties. Deal is brought on deck at dawn, his hands bound. He is allowed to speak if he wishes. He chooses silence. His face pale but composed. You wonder what drives a man to betray his companions. Fear of hanging? Greed for reward money? Simple exhaustion with the constant danger? You will never know. Deal takes his reasons to his death. The method is shooting, quicker and cleaner than hanging. 6 men volunteer as the firing squad. They stand in a line, muskets loaded. You give the command, present arms. Fire. The volley cracks across the morning air. Deal falls, dead before he hits the deck. His body is sewn into canvas and committed to the sea with the same brief. Words used for all the dead, pirate or enemy. He chose his path. Captain Anstis says quietly as the ripples fade where Deal's body sank. We all do. The incident leaves the crew shaken. How many others might be considering betrayal? How many are secretly planning to accept pardons or sell information? The paranoia that has been building reaches a fever pitch. You call a meeting, standing before the assembled crew with all the authority your position demands. I know what you're thinking, you tell them. You're wondering who else might betray us. You're wondering if the man next to you is trustworthy. That kind of thinking will destroy us faster than any navy. You pause, letting your words sink in. Every man here chose to stay when hundreds took the pardon. You stayed because you believe in what we're doing, because you value freedom over security. Either we trust each other, or we're already finished. So I'm asking you now, is there anyone here who wants to leave? Anyone who regrets their choice? Speak now, take your share, and go with no judgment. But if you stay, you commit to this crew until the end. Silence. No one moves. No one speaks. Then we sail as brothers. You conclude. And any man who breaks that bond answers to all of us. The crew disperses, and the tension eases slightly. But something has changed. The carefree days of early piracy, when adventure seemed to outweigh danger, are gone. What remains is a harder, grimmer determination. These men will sail under the black flag until the sea or the rope claims them, but they do so with eyes open to the reality of their choice. The Revenge sails for Tortuga, leaving behind the waters where she made her reputation. Behind you lies Nassau, now firmly under British control, transformed from pirate haven to naval base. Behind you lie the merchant lanes you once hunted freely, now patrolled by heavily armed convoys and naval squadrons. Ahead lies uncertainty, but also possibility. The Caribbean is vast. The Spanish Main still offers targets. The Golden Age may be ending, but it has not ended. The ship cuts through the waves toward a new horizon. You stand at your post as quartermaster, watching the crew work. These are your brothers now, your family. Your fate is bound to theirs, for good or ill. The black flag snaps in the wind above your head, defiant against the blue sky. And for this moment, on this day, you are still free. Tortuga in early 1718 is not the legendary pirate paradise of earlier generations. The golden age of the buccaneers, French hunters turned pirates who gave the island its fearsome reputation, has faded. What remains is a rough settlement of smugglers, privateers operating in legal gray zones, and a handful of die-hard pirates who refuse to surrender. The Revenge finds a mixed reception here. The French colonial authorities tolerate pirates who attack Spanish shipping. Anything that weakens France's enemies is acceptable, but they will not shelter men specifically wanted by the British. Captain Anstis negotiates a careful arrangement. The Revenge can use Tortuga as a base, but must maintain deniability. Operating from hidden coves rather than the main harbor at IT is a tenuous position, but it provides breathing room. For 3 months, the crew rests, repairs the ship, and plans carefully selected raids against Spanish targets along the Venezuelan and Colombian coasts. You have developed into a skilled quartermaster. You maintain discipline without tyranny, mediate disputes fairly, and plan operations with the caution of a man who understands that every action carries consequences. The crew respects you, and several younger pirates seek your counsel on everything from navigation to combat tactics. Kwame has become your closest friend and most trusted ally. He has risen to become one of the ship's officers, master-at-arms, responsible for maintaining weapons and training the crew in combat. Together, you form an effective leadership team with Captain Anstis, balancing aggression with prudence. The raids are successful but modest. You take smaller prizes now, avoiding anything that might draw excessive attention. A Spanish coastal trader here, a smuggler's vessel there, remote plantations that can be raided for supplies without triggering massive military response. The profits are enough to keep the crew fed and motivated, but nothing like the glory days of the San Cristobal. Some crew members grumble about the cautious approach. They want the big scores, the legendary prizes that will make them rich and famous. You explain, again and again, that legendary pirates tend to become legendary corpses. We survive by being smart, you tell them during one heated council meeting. The pirates who got rich and famous are mostly dead or captured now. Blackbeard was killed last year, beheaded by Royal Navy sailors and his head hung from their ship's bowsprit. Stede Bonnet hanged in Charleston. Black Sam Bellamy drowned when the Witta sank in a storm. The ones who survive are the ones who know when to fight and when to fade into the background. Your words carry weight because they are demonstrably true. News from the Caribbean brings constant reports of pirate captures and executions. The British are systematically eliminating the pirate threat. Spanish colonial authorities are equally aggressive. Even the French, despite their unofficial tolerance, occasionally arrest pirates to appease diplomatic pressure from other European powers. But caution can only protect you for so long. In May 1718, the Revenge receives intelligence about a Spanish treasure ship that seems too valuable to ignore. The Nuestra Señora de la Concepción is making the return voyage from Portobello to Havana, carrying a year's worth of silver taxes collected from the colonial administration. She travels with a single escort, a small frigate with 18 guns, because Spanish authorities believe the British pirate threat has been sufficiently suppressed that heavy protection is unnecessary. Captain Anstis calls for a council. All senior crew members gather in his cabin, studying captured Spanish charts and intelligence reports purchased from corrupt harbor officials. The cargo is worth perhaps 60,000 pieces of 8, Anstis estimates. Divided among our current crew of 53 men, that's over 1,000 pieces each. Enough to retire on, for those who want to. It's also the kind of target that brings every Spanish warship in the Caribbean down on our heads. You point out, we'd have to flee these waters entirely. Maybe head for Madagascar like some of the others have done. Or we could retire, Kwame suggests. Take this one last score and disappear. Find some remote island, build a settlement, live quietly on our gains. How long can we keep rolling the dice before our luck runs out? The debate continues for hours. The opportunity is tempting, potentially enough wealth to give every crew member real security. But the risks are equally enormous. Attacking a Spanish crown shipment will trigger a massive response. Every harbor will be closed to you. Every navy in the Caribbean will hunt you. Finally, Anstis calls for a vote. The decision must be made democratically, as the articles require. Every man's voice counts equally. The vote is close. 28 in favor of attacking the treasure ship, 25 opposed. A narrow margin, but enough. The hunt is on. Preparation takes 2 weeks. The Revenge is refitted, her hull scraped clean of barnacles to maximize speed. Every weapon is cleaned and readied. Spare sails are prepared. Provisions are loaded for an extended voyage. If this raid succeeds, the crew will need to disappear quickly and remain hidden for months. You spend hours planning the approach. The Spanish ships will be cautious after reaching the open sea, watching for threats. Your advantage is surprise and superior sailing. The Revenge is faster than heavy Spanish vessels, and her crew are experienced combat sailors. The plan is straightforward but depends on precise execution. Locate the Spanish ships, approach during the night, attack at dawn when visibility improves but the Spanish crew is still drowsy from night watch. Disable the escort quickly, then board and take the treasure ship before she can signal for help. The Revenge departs Tortuga on a moonless night, sailing dark with no lanterns showing. For 3 days you cruise along the likely route, Waiting. On the fourth day, the lookout spots two sails on the horizon. The distinctive silhouettes match the intelligence reports. The Concepcion and her escort. The chase begins. You shadow the Spanish ships throughout the day, staying far enough back to avoid alarming them, close enough to maintain visual contact. As sunset approaches, the Revenge begins to close the distance, moving into position for the dawn attack. The night passes with agonizing slowness. Every man is at his station, weapons ready, hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. You stand beside Captain Anstis on the quarterdeck, watching the Spanish ships ahead, dark silhouettes against the star-filled sky. Last chance to reconsider. Anstis murmurs. The crew voted. You reply. We're committed. We are. Dawn breaks clear and bright. The Revenge is now barely a quarter-mile from the Spanish ships, close enough that detection is imminent. The black flag is raised, and simultaneously, the pirate ship surges forward at full speed. The Spanish lookout finally sees the threat and raises the alarm. Bells ring. Drums beat. The Spanish ships scramble to respond, but they are caught unprepared. Sailors stumble from below deck, half-dressed and confused. Officers shout contradictory orders. The Revenge targets the escort frigate first, as planned. Your bow chasers fire, the cannonballs striking the frigate's rigging, tearing sails and severing lines. The Spanish ship tries to come about to present her broadside, but she is too slow. The Revenge slides alongside the frigate, and the real battle begins. Your broadside thunders, 8 cannons firing almost simultaneously. Chain shot and grape shot tear through the Spanish ship at close range. Men scream. With splinters, the frigate's mainmast sways and topples, crashing down in a tangle of canvas and rigging. Grappling hooks fly. The ships grind together. You lead the boarding party, quartermaster's privilege and responsibility, your cutlass drawn, pistols ready. The Spanish sailors fight with desperate courage. They know that losing means disgrace and possibly execution for failing to protect the king's silver. The deck becomes a familiar nightmare of violence and chaos. You fight on instinct, your training and experience guiding your actions without conscious thought. Kwame is beside you, his boarding axe rising and falling with mechanical precision. Together, you cut through the Spanish defenders, forcing them back toward the stern. Captain Anstis leads a second boarding party from the opposite side, and the Spanish resistance collapses, caught between two forces. The frigate's captain surrenders, and attention turns to the Concepcion. The treasure ship has been trying to escape during the fight, but she is too slow and too heavy. The Revenge disengages from the frigate and runs down the merchant ship within the hour. This time there is no battle. The Concepcion's captain, seeing the fate of his escort and recognizing that resistance is futile, strikes his colors immediately. The treasure ship is yours. Below deck, in the Concepcion's hold, the prize exceeds even optimistic expectations. Not 60,000 pieces of 8, but closer to 80,000. Bars of silver stamped with the Spanish royal seal. Chests of coins. Gold jewelry confiscated from captured smugglers. Emeralds and pearls. The accumulated wealth of a colonial taxation system designed to extract maximum value from the New World. The crew erupts in celebration. This is the prize they have dreamed of, enough wealth to transform their lives, to escape the pirate existence if they choose, to live comfortably for decades. But you cannot celebrate yet. The immediate problem is escape. We need to move fast. You tell Anstis. The Spanish will have seen the fight. Every naval patrol within 100 miles will be converging on this location. The treasure is transferred to the Revenge with feverish speed. The Spanish ships are stripped of anything useful: weapons, ammunition, food, water, navigational instruments. The Spanish crews are locked below deck on their own vessels with enough provisions to survive until rescue arrives. Then comes the difficult decision. You cannot leave the Spanish ships intact. They will immediately report the Revenge's location and description. But burning them seems excessive, potentially killing the crews you just locked below. The compromise: the ships are disabled, their rudders smashed, their sails torn down but not burned. The Spanish sailors will be rescued by the next ship that passes, but they will not be able to pursue. With the treasure secured and the Spanish ships neutralized, the Revenge sails away at full speed, heading not back to Tortuga but toward a remote island chain you have identified as a potential hiding place. For 3 days you sail hard, constantly watching the horizon for pursuing ships. On the 4th day, you reach your destination, a tiny, uninhabited island with a protected anchorage, surrounded by treacherous reefs that only a skilled pilot can navigate. Here, in this isolated refuge, the crew finally allows itself to celebrate. The treasure is divided according to the articles. Your share, as quartermaster, comes to nearly 1,500 pieces of 8, plus jewelry and other valuables. It is more wealth than you imagined possessing. That night, the pirates feast and drink, their voices carrying across the water. They have done the impossible, one last great score, the kind of prize that legends are made of. But as you sit somewhat apart from the celebration, counting your coins by lamplight, you feel no triumph, only a strange, hollow weariness. You have won, yes, but at what cost? How many men have died to fill these chests? How many widows and orphans has your success created? Kwame finds you there, sitting alone with your wealth and your thoughts. Regrets? He asks. Questions? You reply. About what we've become. What I've become. He sits beside you, his own share of the treasure in a canvas bag at his feet. I was property once, he says quietly, owned like a tool. The people who own me thought they had every right because some men with guns and ships decided that my skin made me less than human. I have killed men who wore the same uniforms as those who enslaved me. I have taken wealth from the same kingdoms that grew rich on slavery. I do not regret this. And when it ends? You ask. Because it will end. The world is hunting us, and eventually, the world wins. Then we will have lived free. Kwame responds simply. That is more than most people ever achieve. That is enough. His words offer cold comfort, but they are true. You chose this life knowing the price. And despite everything, the violence, the betrayals, the constant fear, you have lived as a free man, making your own choices, following your own path. The celebration continues around you. Your brothers in piracy, these men who have become your family, enjoy their triumph. Tomorrow will bring new dangers, new challenges. But tonight, under a Caribbean sky blazing with stars, they are victorious. You rejoin the celebration, raising your cup in toast after toast, to freedom, to brotherhood, to survival against impossible odds. Datio, the black flag, which still flies above the Revenge, defiant against the gathering darkness. The island refuge provides safety for 3 months. The crew builds temporary shelters, establishes a fresh water supply, and creates a small settlement. Some men talk seriously about staying here permanently, abandoning piracy for a simpler life. But paradise is temporary. In August 1718, a passing merchant ship spots smoke from the pirates cooking fires and reports the location to Spanish authorities in Havana. Within 2 weeks, a Spanish naval force, 3 warships carrying over 100 guns combined, arrives to investigate. The pirates spot the Spanish ships early enough to evacuate. The Revenge slips away through the reef passages under cover of darkness, leaving behind the settlement they briefly called home. The Spanish land soldiers who find only abandoned shelters and cold fire pits. But now they know the Revenge is operating in these waters. The net is closing. The pirates return to Tortuga, but the French authorities are no longer welcoming. Woodes Rogers has applied diplomatic pressure, threatening trade disruptions if France continues harboring British pirates. The message is clear. Find somewhere else. Captain Anstis calls a council to discuss the situation. The reality is undeniable. There is nowhere safe left in the Caribbean. Every former haven has been closed or compromised. Every nation is hunting pirates with unprecedented coordination. We have 3 realistic options. Anstis presents to the crew. First, sail to Madagascar and join the pirates there. It's a long, dangerous voyage, but if we make it, we'll be beyond British and Spanish reach. Second, accept the general pardon. Rogers is still offering amnesty to pirates who surrender. We'd have to give up the ship and most of our treasure, but we'd live. Third, continue as we are, accepting that we're living on borrowed time. The debate that follows reveals deep divisions. Roughly a third of the crew favors Madagascar, a desperate gamble but one that might preserve their freedom. Another third wants to accept the pardon. They have enough wealth hidden away to live comfortably if they can avoid hanging. The final third wants to continue piracy, arguing that surrendering or fleeing means the authorities' win.no consensus emerges. Finally, after days of argument, a decision is reached that will satisfy no one but prevents the crew from fragmenting violently. The Revenge will sail to the Carolinas, where several crew members have contacts. There, individual pirates can choose their own paths. Some can attempt to integrate into colonial society with their hidden wealth, others can seek passage to Madagascar, still others can try for the pardon.it is, effectively, the dissolution of the crew. The Brotherhood that survived storms and battles and betrayals is finally broken by simple lack of options. The voyage north is melancholy. The camaraderie that once defined the Revenge has given way to a every-man-for-himself mentality. Pirates hoard their shares, make private plans, form small cliques based on shared future intentions. You spend much of the voyage in contemplation. You are 25 years old. You have been a pirate for 3 years that feel like a lifetime. You have killed men in battle. You have stolen from merchants and colonial governments. You have lived under the black flag with a freedom most people never experience. And now it is ending. Not with a dramatic final battle, not with a heroic last stand, but with a gradual dissolution as practical reality overwhelms romantic ideals. Kwame finds you at the rail one evening as the ship approaches the Carolina coast. "What will you do?" he asks. "I don't know," you admit. "I have enough gold to live comfortably if I can find a place that doesn't ask too many questions. Maybe one of the remote colonial settlements. Change my name. Invent a past. Fade into anonymity. Will that be enough for you?" After this, you consider the question honestly. Probably not. But the alternative is hanging or dying in some pointless battle. I've survived this long by knowing when to fight and when to retreat. This is a time for retreat. I'm going to Madagascar. Kwame tells you, there are established communities there. Former slaves who escaped and built free settlements. Pirates who retired and created their own societies. It's not paradise, but it's freedom. Come with me. The offer is tempting. But Madagascar is half a world away, and the voyage is notoriously dangerous. More ships are lost attempting the crossing than complete it successfully. "I can't," you say finally. "I've used up my luck. I can feel it. One more impossible gamble and I'll lose. Better to take what I've won and walk away while I still can." Kwame nods, understanding if not agreeing. Then this is goodbye. After everything we've survived together, it ends with goodbye. You observe. Seems inadequate. We're alive to say goodbye. Kwame points out. That's more than most pirates manage. Blackwell didn't get a goodbye. Malcolm didn't. Pierre didn't. We do. That's something. He's right, of course. You clasp hands with him, brother to brother, knowing you will likely never see each other again. The Revenge arrives off the Carolina coast in September 1718, anchoring in a hidden inlet. Over the following week, the crew disperses. Some men head inland, disappearing into the colonial wilderness with their treasure. Others book passage on legitimate ships, planning to attempt the Madagascar voyage or return to Europe. A handful, unable to abandon the pirate life, declare their intention to steal a boat and continue operating with whoever will join them. Captain Anstis is among the last to leave. He has decided to accept the pardon, gambling that his fame is insufficient to mark him for special punishment. "It's been an honor sailing with you," he tells you in your final conversation. "You became a fine quartermaster. Blackwell would have been proud. What will you do after the pardon?" You ask. "Become ordinary. Find some trade or small business. Try to forget that I was once Captain Thomas Anstis, that I commanded the Revenge, that I lived free under the black flag. Probably fail at forgetting, but succeed at surviving. That's enough. He shakes your hand, then walks away down the beach, becoming smaller and smaller until he disappears into the coastal forest. You never see him again. When the dispersal is complete, only 15 men remain with the ship, those who cannot imagine any life except piracy, who would rather die on the water than live on land. They vote to continue operating, choosing a new captain from among themselves. You are not among them. You take your share of the treasure, carefully divided and divided again as the crew shrank, and walk away from the Revenge for the last time. The ship that was your home, your freedom, your whole world, sits at anchor in the inlet. The black flag still flies from her mast, but it seems smaller now, less defiant. The Revenge will sail again with her skeleton crew, hunting the increasingly well-protected merchant lanes. She will be captured 3 months later by a Royal Navy patrol, her crew hanged, her hull burned to the waterline. But you will not witness that end. You walk inland, carrying a canvas bag containing more wealth than your father earned in his entire life, heading toward a future that is uncertain but at least offers the possibility of survival. Behind you, the Golden Age of Piracy draws toward its close. Ahead lies what? An ordinary life? An anonymous existence in some colonial backwater? Years of looking over your shoulder, wondering if today is the day someone recognizes you, if today is the day the past catches up. Perhaps, but at least you will face that future as a free man, as someone who chose his own path, who lived by his own code, who for 3 brief, impossible years sailed under the black flag and answered to no authority except his brothers in piracy. The sun sets behind you, painting the sky in shades of fire. The sea murmurs against the shore, eternal and indifferent. You do not look back. You settle in a small town in the Carolina backcountry, far from the coast and the questions that might arise there. Your name is now William Cooper, common enough to be unremarkable. Your story is that you worked as a factor for a merchant house in Jamaica until disease took your employer, leaving you with a modest inheritance. The story is believable because you have the knowledge to support it. 3 years at sea taught you how merchant shipping works, what goods trade at what prices, how colonial commerce functions. You can discuss cargo manifests and shipping routes with casual expertise. The gold coins you occasionally produce for purchases are explained as your inheritance carefully spent. You purchase a small plot of land and build a modest house. You open a general store, investing some of your hidden wealth into legitimate trade goods. The business prospers modestly. You are polite to your neighbors, attend church on Sundays, never draw attention to yourself. By all external measures, you are exactly what you claim to be, a reasonably successful merchant building a quiet life in colonial America. But the pirate years haunt you. At night, you dream of the Revenge, the creak of her timbers, the snap of canvas in the wind, the ring of steel on steel as boarding parties clash, the faces of men you killed, the faces of men who died beside you. Blackwell's calm voice explaining the articles, Kwame's fierce grin in battle, Captain Anstis standing at the quarterdeck, silhouetted against the setting sun. You wake from these dreams sweating and disoriented, unsure for a moment where you are, reaching instinctively for weapons that no longer hang at your belt. During the day, you serve customers and maintain your merchant's facade. But sometimes a ship captain comes into your store and you find yourself desperate for news from the Caribbean. Most of what you hear confirms your decision to leave. More pirates captured and hanged, more havens closed, the systematic elimination of what remains of the pirate republic. You learn that Captain Anstis did not survive his pardon. He was recognized, arrested, and hanged 6 months after surrendering. So much for royal mercy. You hear nothing about Kwame, which you choose to interpret as good news. Perhaps he made it to Madagascar. Perhaps he is living free on the other side of the world, beyond the reach of European powers. The years pass. 1719, 1720, 1721. Your business grows. Your wealth increases through legitimate trade. You are becoming a respected member of the community. People call you Mr. Cooper. They invite you to social gatherings. They seek your advice on business matters. You play the role perfectly, but inside you are still a pirate, Still that young sailor who signed the Articles of Agreement and chose dangerous freedom over safe servitude in 1722. News reaches your town that shocks the entire community. The British have executed 52 pirates in a mass hanging in Cape Coast Castle in West Africa. Among them, the last of the truly famous pirate captains, Bartholomew Roberts, known as Black Bart, who commanded a fleet and took over 400 prizes. His crew fought to the end, but the Royal Navy overwhelmed them. With Roberts's death, the Golden Age of Piracy is definitively over. The few pirates who remain are small-time criminals, not the democratic sea rovers who once challenged empires. The unique historical moment that made your pirate life possible has closed. You are 30 years old, and you have survived. You have done what most pirates never do. You escaped with your life and your fortune. You should feel fortunate, grateful. Instead, you feel hollow. One evening, you sit in your house counting the week's receipts, and you realize that you have more wealth now than you ever had as a pirate. Your store is successful. Your investments are sound. You are, by any objective measure, better off than you were aboard the Revenge. But you are not free. Not truly. You are trapped by your secret, by the constant need to maintain your false identity, by the knowledge that one slip could mean discovery and execution. You are trapped by respectability, by the expectations of your community, by the very stability you sought. The pirate life was dangerous, often brutal, sometimes terrifying. But it was authentic. You lived as yourself, among men who knew who you were and accepted you. Every decision carried weight because every decision might mean life or death. Every sunrise was precious because it might be your last. This life is safe, comfortable, empty. You pour yourself rum, good rum, far better than anything you drank aboard ship, and you raise a silent toast to absent friends. To Blackwell, dead in a naval ambush. To Anstis, hanged despite his pardon. To Malcolm and Pierre and all the others whose names you carry with you. To Kwame, wherever he might be, to the Revenge, burned and gone, to the Black Flag, that symbol of defiance and freedom, that flew so briefly over Caribbean waters before the world's powers crushed it. You drink alone in your comfortable house, a successful merchant mourning a lost life that most people would consider criminal and wasteful. But you know the truth. Those 3 years were more real, more vital, more fully lived than any amount of quiet prosperity could ever be. The price of that freedom was high. The memory of that freedom is both a treasure and a burden. Outside, the Carolina night is peaceful. No waves, no wind in canvas, no threat of storms or naval patrols, just crickets and the distant howl of a wolf and the mundane sounds of civilized life. You sit in the silence and remember, and you wonder, if given the choice again, knowing everything you know now, would you make the same decision? The answer comes without hesitation. Yes. 1,000 times yes. You would sign the Articles again, raise the Black Flag again, sail the Caribbean again, even knowing exactly where it would lead. Because for 3 brief years you lived as a free man in an unfree world. You made your own choices, answered to no master except your brothers in piracy, carved out a space where democracy and dignity could exist for common sailors. That the experiment failed, that the world crushed it, does not diminish its value. It proves only that the world fears freedom enough to destroy it wherever it appears. You drain your rum and blow out the lamp, sitting in darkness. Tomorrow you will wake and return to your merchant's role. You will smile at customers and discuss prices and pretend to be William Cooper, respectable businessman. But tonight, in the privacy of memory, you are a pirate. And you are free. The year is 1726. You are 34 years old, and you have been William Cooper for longer than you were a pirate. Your store has become one of the most successful businesses in the region. You have served on the town council. You are considered a pillar of the community. And you are preparing to die. The illness came quickly, a fever that burns through your body, leaving you weak and delirious. The doctor has done what he can, which is very little. He gives you perhaps a week, possibly less. You lie in your bed, attended by concerned neighbors who know nothing about who you really are. And you contemplate the story of your life. What will people remember? William Cooper, merchant, whose sudden death leaves his business to be auctioned off. whose wealth will be distributed according to a will carefully crafted to avoid revealing its pirate origins. The real story dies with you, unless you choose otherwise. In your lucid moments, when the fever recedes enough for clarity, you call for writing materials. Your housekeeper, a widow who works for you and has been genuinely kind, brings paper, ink, and pen. She thinks you are writing letters or perhaps a confession for spiritual purposes. You are doing something else entirely. You write it all down. The years aboard the Revenge, the raids, the storms, the Brotherhood, the articles of agreement, the names of men long dead, the truth about the Golden Age of Piracy, not the sensational legends that are already being published in London, but the actual experience of men who chose freedom over servitude. You write for 3 days whenever fever allows, filling page after page with your recollections. It is not a justification or an apology. It is simply the truth. This happened, we existed, we lived this way, and for a brief moment, we were free on the 4th day. You seal the pages in a waterproof packet and call for your housekeeper. When I die, you tell her, I want you to take this packet and hide it, not read it, not show it to anyone. Just hide it somewhere safe. Perhaps someday, long after everyone who might care is dead, someone will find it. Perhaps they will understand. She promises, confused but respectful of a dying man's wishes. That night, the fever worsens. You drift in and out of consciousness, and, in your delirium, you are back aboard the Revenge. You can feel the ship moving beneath you, smell the salt air, hear the voices of your crew. Blackwell is there, explaining the articles with patient precision. Kwame stands beside you, boarding axe in hand, grinning before a raid. Captain Anstis calls orders from the quarterdeck, his voice strong and clear. The black flag snaps in the wind above your head, brilliant against an impossibly blue sky. The Caribbean stretches endlessly in all directions, full of possibility and danger. You are young again, strong again, free again. All hands. Someone calls. Sail ho! You move to your station, ready for whatever comes next. This is where you belong. This is who you truly are. The vision fades. You are back in your bed, in your house, in your false life. But the memory remains vivid, more real than the room around you. Your housekeeper sits beside you, holding your hand. Is there anyone you want me to send for? She asks gently. Family? Friends? You shake your head. Your real family, your crew, your brothers are scattered or dead. There is no one left who knows your true name, who remembers the man you actually were. Just tell me something. You whisper, your voice barely audible. Do you think a man can be a good person even if he's done terrible things? She considers the question seriously. I think, she says slowly, that we are all more complicated than good or bad. We make choices. We live with consequences. Perhaps that's all anyone can do. It is not absolution, but it is enough. As dawn breaks on the 5th day, your breathing becomes shallow. The fever has won its final battle. In your last moments, you find yourself thinking not about regrets or redemption, but about simple gratitude. Grateful that you lived in that extraordinary historical moment when the Golden Age of Piracy was possible. Grateful that you had the courage to sign the articles, to raise the black flag, to choose freedom. Grateful for the men who sailed beside you, fought beside you, died beside you. Grateful that for 3 years you lived more fully and freely than most people do in a lifetime. The room grows dim. The pain fades. And in that final moment between life and death, you are not William Cooper, merchant. You are yourself, pirate, rebel, freeman. You are back on the deck of the Revenge, standing at the rail as the sun sets over the Caribbean. The black flag flies above you. Your brothers surround you. The horizon stretches endlessly ahead, full of mystery and promise. Fair winds. Someone says beside you. Fair winds. You whisper in return. And then there is only silence and peace, and the eternal rhythm of waves against a hull, carrying you toward whatever unknown shore waits beyond this final voyage point. 200 years later, a historian working in the archives of a North Carolina museum discovers an old packet, hidden in a wall during renovations of a colonial-era house. Inside are pages, yellowed with age but remarkably well preserved, covered in careful handwriting. She begins to read, and as the story unfolds, she realizes what she has found. A first-hand account of pirate life during the Golden Age, written by someone who actually lived it. Not the romanticized legends. Not the propagandistic condemnations. The truth. The manuscript describes the Articles of Agreement in detail, how pirate democracy actually functioned. It explains the economic realities that drove men to piracy. It acknowledges the violence without glorifying it. It presents pirates not as heroes or villains, but as complex human beings making impossible choices in a brutal world. The historian recognizes the historical value immediately. This account corroborates some legends and contradicts others. It provides details about daily life aboard pirate ships that no other document contains. It humanizes people who have been reduced to caricatures by history. She begins the long process of authentication, verification, and eventual publication. The manuscript will become a valuable historical resource, studied by scholars, debated by historians, used to understand a fascinating and complex period of history. But perhaps the manuscript's greatest value lies in what it reveals about freedom itself, how desperately people will fight for it, how dangerous it is to those in power, how briefly it can flourish before being crushed, and how its memory persists long after the reality has vanished. The pirates of the Golden Age created a democratic society on their ships, however flawed and violent it might have been. They proved that common people could govern themselves, share wealth equitably, and make collective decisions. These ideas were dangerous in an age of absolute monarchies and rigid social hierarchies. That's why the pirates had to be eliminated. Not just because they stole cargo, but because they represented an alternative way of organizing society. One based on consent, democracy, and rough equality rather than inherited privilege and authoritarian rule. The manuscript ends with a simple statement, written in a hand weakened by illness. We were not saints. We were not heroes. We were sailors who refused to be slaves. We chose freedom knowing the price. We lived by our own rules, answered to no masters, and sailed under our own flag. For 3 years we were truly free. Let this stand as proof that we existed, that we mattered, that we lived. The historian sits back in her chair, moved by the words written so long ago by a dying man determined that his truth not be lost. She thinks about all the sanitized, simplified versions of history we tell ourselves. The heroes and villains, the good guys and bad guys, the neat moral categories that make understanding easier but less true. And she thinks about the messy reality that people are complicated, that morality is contextual, that sometimes the criminals of one age become the freedom fighters, remembered by another. She carefully returns the manuscript to its protective case, already planning how to share this story with the world. It deserves to be told. These men deserve to be remembered, not as the monsters of propaganda or the heroes of legend, but as they actually were, humans struggling to live with dignity in an undignified age, who for a brief, shining moment, succeeded. The black flag flew over Caribbean waters for barely 15 years during its golden age. But what those years represented, the possibility of freedom, democracy, and self-determination for common people, has never really been defeated. The pirate republic fell. The men who built it died or disappeared. But the idea they represented survives in every person who questions authority, who demands dignity, who chooses freedom over security, who believes that ordinary people have the right to govern themselves. The manuscript will be preserved, studied, and debated. Scholars will argue over its authenticity and accuracy. Popular writers will mine it for dramatic stories. Students will read excerpts in their history classes. But perhaps the most important reader will be someone who stumbles across the account accidentally, who reads it in a moment of personal crisis or doubt, and who finds in these pages something they desperately needed. Proof that ordinary people, when pushed beyond endurance, can choose to live on their own terms, even if that choice leads to danger or death. Proof that freedom, real freedom, is possible. Even if it's temporary. Even if it's dangerous. Even if the world conspires to destroy it. The black flag flew. The pirates sailed. Men who were treated as property declared themselves free and lived by that declaration. They existed. They mattered. They lived. And their story, finally, can be told. The waves continue their eternal rhythm against shores around the world. Ships still sail the Caribbean, though none now fly the skull and crossbones. The Golden Age of Piracy ended centuries ago. But on quiet nights, when the wind is right and the moon is full, you might imagine you can hear it still. The creak of rigging, the snap of canvas, the voices of men singing shanties as they sail toward an uncertain horizon. The black flag rising. The cry of "Sail ho!" The promise of freedom, however brief. The story of those who chose to live free whatever the cost. That story never ends. It only waits to be told again, in each generation, to those who need to hear it. Welcome to Sleepless Ancient Odyssey. The journey is complete. Rest now, knowing that somewhere in history, men and women like you refused to accept the world as it was, and for a brief, impossible moment, they succeeded in making it something better. Fair winds, following seas, and peaceful dreams.